Hello, real estate investing fools. Hospitality and retail were the hardest hit sectors during the pandemic. There was a lot of gloom and doom. I think there's still a lot of gloom and doom and uncertainty about the Delta variant, but I want to cut through some of that today by interviewing Eric Birnbaum. He's a New York City-based real estate developer. He's got this great vision for the future of experiential real estate. His company, Dreamscape, is doing some really beautiful things. He's focused on redeveloping residential, retail, hospitality, entertainment, and gaming properties into unique and dynamic environments. He's worked with some high-profile creators, some people that make some beautiful spaces, Pharrell Williams and designer Ken Fulk among them. So let's get into it. Hi, Eric.
Hello. How are you?
Good. So I've heard you have this goal of $1 billion in acquisition in the next 24 months. Wow, that's ambitious. What's the pricing environment that you're seeing in hospitality properties?
The pricing environment is actually, I may reach that goal quicker, sooner rather than later. No, the pricing has been actually pretty robust. People have really looked through Corona and kind of are anticipating what's going to come on the other end. And as a result, sellers I think, have somewhat of a little bit of delusions of grandeur and have been thinking that the world is going to recover, extremely quickly. And as a result, pricing has been actually pretty robust.
Interesting, because I think at the beginning of the pandemic, we were hearing all of that. There's going to be distressed assets in hospitality and retail. There was all this capital sitting on the sidelines. So much of it hasn't been deployed. Do you feel like that's going to come eventually? I mean, when I look at like the CMBS loan stats, hospitality is still pretty heavily hit.
It's hard to say. I think obviously, call it May of or March of 2020. We were all kind of like sitting around and thinking that this was going to be one of the most unique potential buying opportunities, in our careers. I think the reality of the situation is, and not, I think rightfully so, is that lenders and borrowers, sort of work together and said, listen, this is an isolated event, hopefully, and let's figure out a way to kind of bridge the gap and get to the other side. And as a result, there was less, distress or less distressed selling than a lot of people anticipated. I think, though, that as this continues to evolve and take longer, and it's certainly not a straight line that has been going on. I think there are going to be, I don't know if I would use the word distress to categorize like the whole industry, but I think there are going to be certain assets that are going to be made available at compelling prices. And for us, we're not macro players per se, where we say, okay, let's just buy everything and wave it all in just because everything is quote unquote distressed. We are, very property specific, site specific, asset specific. And if the math to us makes sense, whether we're in a quote unquote distressed environment or not a distressed environment, we just look at the math in front of us and say, can we get from, A to B, and can we make sense of the opportunity, staring at us?
Well, I think that's really interesting because obviously you're really sort of laser focused on creating these types of experiences. I know you just bought your first property in Nashville, the Sheraton Grand Nashville downtown. Obviously a fantastic market to be in right now. What are your plans for turning that hotel into a real destination?
For us, first it starts with the location. So obviously, Nashville is a city that is obviously on the upswing, and we think continues and will continue to be on the upswing. So starting with that, obviously the trends in Nashville are, from a macro perspective, are actually quite good. And then for us, we really, without getting into the actual specifics and how we're repositioning it and what the design is going to be, it's really starting with a great city with good bricks and, that have good bones, and in a location that is obviously, we think, quite good. And then just bringing in a little bit of, a little bit of love to it and a little bit of focus, from whether it's, once again, from a design perspective or even from an operational perspective. to turn the asset into hopefully, its best self. We think that there's, a lot of meat on the bones. And, once we get in there and really start to do our thing, we're quite optimistic. The rooms and cities and all these things, the box in itself, like a hotel asset, is very much of a commoditized type of product. And really it's about like what kind of experience can you create like within the box, and whether that is, and obviously every asset is an individual, but what type of food and beverage experience can you bring? What type of music experience can you bring? What experience can you bring to an asset that can take something that is a fairly commoditized asset, i.e., hotels or real estate in general, and bring it into something that is, differentiated, where people will seek you out?
I think that's one of the things that's fascinating about what you do is that your projects have this coolness factor. You bring in top brands, you've got celebrities and celebrity designers. You build that excitement every time. It seems like that you launch a property, then there's, the Instagram influencers are there in a couple of months taking pictures of these gorgeous spaces. How do you build that excitement? Is it about the partners, or do you come in with the vision?
It's certainly a collaborative like effort. I think first it's first about recognizing how can we make a difference. And like I said before, like what is the difference that we can make? And the difference, once again, is an experience. And an experience and how you create that experience doesn't necessarily have to cost anything. It doesn't cost anything to turn the lights down. It doesn't cost anything to play music or create a smell and create an ambiance that people, gravitate to. And that will hopefully, if you create the right experience, it will generate almost or hopefully organically a buzz about it. And that ends up sort of becoming a little bit of a snowball effect, where that buzz then attracts, people that are seeking that type of experience. And then those people and that buzz come together and hopefully create something that's, unique and differentiated. For us, it certainly depends on, once again, it depends on the asset and what our vision is for the asset. But sometimes it makes sense to bring in, the right type of food and beverage partner. Sometimes it makes sense to bring in individuals like a David Grutman or a Pharrell. And it really is about like, what is the overall like business plan, and then thinking about it and trying to like pull in the right pieces to make the story right. But every deal and every opportunity and every situation is different.
I think that's some of what your special sauce is that each one is sort of an entity unto itself. So how are you feeling about the New York hospitality market right now? I mean, we thought Broadway was going to come back strong in September. Things are starting to look a little less strong right now. How optimistic are you feeling?
Look, I mean, in general, like I'm a pretty optimistic person. So I don't look at like real estate in, 1 to 2 year type of, cycles. I believe that we will, as a country or as a world, like get over this. And when we do, people are going to travel, people are going to want to experience things, people are going to want to come to New York. New York is one of the greatest cities in the world. So I'm a big believer in it and do believe that it will come back. It's obviously very centered on international travel. It's obviously centered on business travel, and those, those two items have been obviously, strangled and haven't haven't existed for the past 18, 19 months. But I do inherently believe that it will come back. Will it come back in the next month or two? I'm certainly not smart enough to know that, but but I'm a believer long term. And, if you don't look in increments of every quarter, you're in much better shape, I think. It's too hard to predict. I mean, look at what we were thinking about in May. Everybody thought that the world was, all coming back in May, June, July, and then all of a sudden things turned pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about a market that has bounced back really strongly, which is Las Vegas. We're seeing a lot of activity in Vegas. First resort opened on the strip that has, in recent months that seeing the Fontainebleau project is going to come back after all of that time. What are you thinking about Vegas and how are you betting on the long term in that market?
As far as Las Vegas is concerned, I mean, look, we're extremely excited about Las Vegas. It is a market that is, once again, we do believe is going to come back ferociously. It's already shown, interestingly, in May, numbers were up 10% over 2019 peak numbers. So obviously, people are really excited to go back there and experience it. And for us, we are, we're laser focused on the asset that we have and trying to put the pieces together without getting too specific about exactly like what it is that we're doing. We think that, and you nicely said that we bring a special sauce. We think that we can bring a special sauce to Las Vegas. We think that there's an opportunity in Las Vegas to kind of reinvent it a little bit. And there hasn't been a lot of innovation, if any, in Las Vegas for 30 years. So if you look at what people have typically done, they go to the same architects, they go to the same food and beverage purveyors, they go to the same designers, and everything looks and feels, very generic and, cookie cutter. And hopefully on the margin, we can be a little bit differentiated and offer a product that, will resonate.
So the project that you've got in Vegas, that's the Rio, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so is the plan to, I know you probably can't talk about it too much, but is the plan to sort of reinvigorate that brand, or are you doing something with the property itself?
So as far as the brand, the Rio is concerned, we're going to update it and refresh it. And well, more than refresh it, we're going to sort of reimagine it, but we're keeping the name the Rio. But what it stands for and how it's positioned will obviously be quite different than what it was. And as far as what goes on inside, we're obviously, it's going to be a whole new design. It's going to have a whole new aesthetic. It's going to have a whole new food and beverage element to it. And, what people remember of the Rio, I think there will be elements of it that, people will be able to point to and sort of have some nostalgia, but hopefully we bring it up to sort of today, sort of a more modern version, if you will.
So what do you think about other markets right now? You've got Nashville, you've got New York, you've got Vegas. What other markets are intriguing to you? You've got Miami, I know.
We bought an asset in Charleston, so we like
Oh,
Charleston.
nice.
We bought an asset in New Orleans, so we like New Orleans. We've been looking in LA. We're doing a big residential project in LA. We like 24-hour gateway cities that that have an energy to them, that have a where there's life. It's not really just about following young people per se, but it's more of like a mentality of energy. If you sort of connected the dots between everything that we've done, it has really been about like where there's some excitement and there's some life. And, we would certainly love to do something in a place like Austin, is another city that is interesting and obviously on an interesting growth trajectory and has sort of a youthful vibe to it. But it's once again, it's very hard to find the right asset at the right price that have the characteristics to it that where we feel like we can make a difference.
What advantage do you think that boutique hotels have in our current environment? I have a theory that they are doing better because people really want a unique experience. And so some of the more traditional flagged hotels aren't necessarily as interesting to people. Is that kind of what you're seeing?
Yeah. I mean, I think the word like boutique hotel has been like, I don't even know what a boutique hotel like is anymore. It's been kind of, I think, butchered a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, what people gravitate to or want is an experience. And, I don't think that, just as an example, that if Marriott, Hilton, or Hyatt rolled out a branded asset that gave people the experience like that they were looking for, that people wouldn't go there. I just think that that people want things that are authentic, that feel like not contrived and feel organic. And I think that you typically find that in independent hotels, but I think the big branded hotels like certainly could do it if they, if that was what they were truly like focused on. I mean, as an example, the Edition hotels are owned by Marriott, and I think that they have done actually quite a good job of giving experiences that people gravitate to, even though they're under the sort of umbrella, if you will, of a Marriott.
That makes sense. I think part of that also is curated retail. How important is that to you when you're thinking about hotels and the hotel experience?
Depending on the hotel, very important. I mean, one of the things, that we try and do is like have a story permeate throughout an asset. So if you have a very cool, quote unquote boutique hotel, having a Walgreens, sitting at the base of it may not like necessarily be like the right, mix or the story that you want to tell. So, consumers are smart, like, and they want to feel like that, especially when they're traveling or, going to a hotel, that they're being taken out of their life and that they're being put into a story that, that resonates with them. And, that story sort of begins at the base of the building and typically like where your retail is. So you want ideally for that retail and experience to like feel good from, from the bottom all the way up to the top. So, for us, we try and like marry hopefully a really good retail experience with what's going on upstairs and where the two things speak to one another.
I love what you said there about the story and being immersed in the story. And that makes me think also about the role of hotels and your projects in a city. Is it about attracting tourism? What do you see as the role of your projects in the cities that you're in?
Look, I mean, our job at the end of the day is to get people to our properties and to experience them and to feel like that we're giving them an experience that feels good and is at the right price point and where they don't feel that they're being taken advantage of. Our role is very simple. It's just to do what we do and sort of let the product like speak for itself. And hopefully then that, attracts, and hopefully that then fills our assets. I don't feel like a greater role like beyond that per se. We just want to do, we each of these projects are unto themselves. So our job is to, maximize that opportunity, create a product and do it for, do it right for us and do it right for like the customer.
Love that. All right. Last question for you. You obviously are very able to stay on top of what is happening in the world. Any secrets for that? How do you maintain sort of understanding the pulse of what is happening?
We have a great team. So obviously like from young to I guess to older, if you will. And I mean, each of those, but the thing that permeates throughout everybody like on our team, they like to live life, which I think is important. And listening to them and like their experiences and where they went out to eat and what they like or what they don't like, and giving everybody sort of the opportunity to let themselves like be heard and speak is important because all those things like go into ultimately our assets, as far as staying, that helps us, I think, stay relevant and current. And, for me, I like to live life. So I'm always like looking for something new and looking for, what is out there and what's resonating. So trying things and, you can't do what we do, like sitting behind a computer every day and just with it sort of like your blinders on. You need to actually like get out there, experience life and see what people are gravitating to. And and listen.
Listening, very important. Well, thank you for your time today, Eric. This was fantastic. Listeners, you can learn more at dreamscapecos.com to learn more about the company. Keep an eye out for them. I guarantee you'll be hearing a lot more about this company in the future. Stay well and stay invested.
Right. Thank you very much.